Well, greetings. My name is Jim, and if you're watching this video, you were probably a developer that I connected with on Upwork regarding 2025 and 2026 work on the Draft Professor website. So there are several things that I would like done, and the purpose of this video is to kind of explain where the site is and where I want it to go. So there's actually a fourth block here that we've had on some of the test sites. This is obviously the production site that's in released. So there's a fourth section here to allow 32 people to do a mock draft for 32 different teams. My existing developers got it working, but I can never get it to work. So basically, there's a usability issue here, and that's something I would like to see fixed. In addition to that, there's some things on the draft value chart I would like enhanced. I would consider them minor. I can point to another website and say, I want it to behave like the other website. So this information is good. It loads. There are some minor formatting issues sometimes with this. So I think this could be cleaned up, but this is not a major source of enhancement. This players tab is a huge pain point for me. So we have a list of players and it lists them 20 at a time. You can go to the next page and scroll. You can go to the next page and scroll, right? So that's cool. You can pick one position here, but you can't pick more than one position. So that's something I don't like. And then I want to be able to also filter on more than one college here. So I want to be able to multi-pick on the filters here. And really, this player section is where a lot of enhancements are going to be. And I'm going to put a pin in the players, know that this is where a lot of attention is going to be put. And I will explain that more further in the video. Okay, so as far as team needs goes, you notice that this does take a minute to load. Overall, that responsiveness needs a little bit of work, in my opinion. Nothing on the website should take this long to load. So my instinct is the draft counts are what took that page longer to load. So maybe the solution is to move the draft count somewhere else from the site architecture standpoint. But the team needs, I like the way that this page functions. I don't like how long it took to load. So that's kind of my orientation a little bit as far as our website. And then this is the user panel. And one of the issues is I have not been able to see anybody pay for anything on the website. So it just feels like that functionality was never actually deployed. So even though it says it all here, I've had people click it. I've tried clicking it. And I've never even been able to pay myself. So I need a developer with experience on making sure the pay aspects of the site work. Okay, next part of the website. This is my admin panel. I don't like using this. So how it's been deployed, a lot of what's going to happen is when we start talking about the players. Okay, so my current right here, it says import CSV. Okay, well, when I import a CSV, it overwrites the CSV that's there, or the player list that's there. We need the player loading functionality significantly improved. And then there's some other things in here that, in my opinion, are going to need to improve. So the functionality's there, but it's not working exactly the way a site administrator finds easy. It's functional, but not easy to use from my standpoint as the person that maintains the site. Okay, next thing. So this is DigitalOcean. So my entire site is deployed on this DigitalOcean. You can see draftprofessor.com. And I'm curious, if you have a suggestion for something that's not DigitalOcean, I will listen to you. One of my big questions, I think a lot of people have asked about tech stack. Okay, is DigitalOcean, I assume that's part of it. I assume my source code is on DigitalOcean. And one of the first things we should do when we discuss meeting is, how do you get access to the source code? I assume my current developers are storing it at DigitalOcean, but I don't know how to access it. I'm not a coder. So I need somebody that's going to be able to tell me, Jim, here is your source code. Here's what you're using at DigitalOcean. Here's your tech stack. So this will probably be one of the first discussion points when we sit down to meet. Okay, so that shows you what I have today. Here's what I want to add for next year. And when I say next year, this functionality needs to be ready for prime time in October. Okay, so the draft season goes from May to April. I can live without some of my asks between May and October, but by October 1st, we have to have this functional. Okay, so this is a competitor's website. This is 3013. This is a scouting report for Trey Amos. And you can see, some information here, height, weight, pro comp, and then they have some descriptions of him, some positives, negatives. Okay. The scouting reports on my website don't need to have the same headings. Some of this information will be uploaded by people. And I've got some other tabs open that I will show you what I mean in a minute. Okay. So my site is going to need scouting reports for 300 players like Trey Amos. And there needs to be a good way to sort through the player list that I showed you here to be able to get to the scouting reports that I'm showing here. So I can come up with a lot of ways to do it. I'm not in love with any one of the ways. It's just, I know what I want. And then the question is as a developer, are you comfortable doing something quickly, asking me if I like it, and then we pivot on what you show me? Or do you want a detailed requirement spec ahead of time, and then I have to go write that requirement spec and hand it off to you? I want to know how you want to work. So if I tell you this is what I want scouting reports, and I can show you 2 or 3 different ways that they look, and I can show you 2 or 3 different ways that they'll be loaded. Okay, so here would be an example of somebody that would be loading a scouting report. This is not my spreadsheet. Okay, so if I were to look up Trey Amos, you can see Trey Amos is right here. Okay, so Trey Amos is row 29. Okay, so if you look here, my goal would be for the person that created the spreadsheet to load their spreadsheet to my site, and their scouting report would be a lot of the information that you see in the columns. Okay, now I can show you other people's scouting reports, and I'm going to look right here. Okay, this is somebody else's board. Now, there's no scouting reports inside this one, but this would be an example of somebody else has the same list of players, but they present it differently. And then if we look here, this is somebody else's version of a scouting report. Okay, so meaning that different people are going to make different sheets. I want them all to be able to load their sheets to my site, and where one person calls them notes, somebody calls it a description. The technology on the site, likely using some form of scraping, needs to know which sections of the spreadsheet go to which sections of the website or the template to load the scouting reports. Because what I'd like is, like, this scouting report here was done by Kyle Krabs. But what if Kyle Krabs and me have a scouting report on Trey Amos and we want to see them side by side? That's not functionality other sites have. That's functionality I want on my site. Okay. So we talked about this, we talked about that. Okay. And then, for example, we're building a list of players for next year. So one of the challenges is like when I come to the admin panel, this is a list of players, and it's easy in hindsight to say, hey, Jim, you have a really good list of players here. But the process to build this list takes 12 months. So a lot of what needs to happen is, okay, we're going to load this list of 163 players, and we're going to load it in May or June. But then we're going to be up to probably 400 players by the end of August. And then we're going to slowly, trim that list of 400 down. We're going to resort the list. And among the things I need to have changed in the admin panel is, how do I resort the list without loading the list again? I don't want to have to constantly load a new list when these players are in a different order. So there's essentially right now, my functionality right here to import the CSV is a combination of that is the player list and that is the order. And they're coupled together. I need those two functions decoupled, because once I load a player list, I don't want to reload the player list. I just want to either add more players to the site, or I want to reorder how they are displayed when we look at them here. Okay, so a significant amount of a site's reputation is the order by which these players are listed. I need that to be easier for my site. So that's a brief summary. What I urge you to do is listen to this, take some notes, ask some questions, and show me how you would work with me on defining what the next steps for each of those things are. And that could be the context of our initial meeting. Thank you.